Do I need a microphone?
It'll pick it up and just talk the way you are. You don't even have to pick it up.
Don't pick it up.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, everybody keep their mask on until they're speaking. Yeah? Okay. Cool. Yeah? All right. Hi, I'm Ellen Troxclair. I used to do these more often when I was on council, but this is the first press conference that I've done. Oh, I think I'll take my mask off since nobody is within 6 feet of me. This is the first press conference that I've done in the 2 years since my term on council ended, and it's not necessarily, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not a hospitality industry worker or owner, but when this news broke, 24 hours ago, I started getting texts and phone calls and desperate emails from friends and colleagues and strangers alike saying, oh my gosh, we are already at the end of our rope. What does this mean? What are we going to do? Do we need to cancel our plans? Just exasperated and understandably. This has been a hard year for everybody, but the hospitality industry has been hit the hardest. And all the people that are associated with the hospitality industry, it's like a chain effect that happens. But the businesses who have managed to still open their doors, they're hanging on by a thread, and they're pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and doing everything they can to keep their doors open, to keep their customers safe, to keep their employees safe. They've invested tens of thousands of dollars in PPE equipment and retrofitting their restaurants and social distancing and limiting capacity and retraining servers and buying gloves and plexiglass and all of the above. Like they have done everything that has been asked of them. And they're doing it because they have a responsibility to their workforce, to their employees who need this money to pay the rent. And the good thing is that they've done it successfully. This virus is not spreading in restaurants. They've been doing this for months already. And being able to serve customers safely does not change at 10:31 tonight. I'll read you. This really isn't about me, so I'm going to get out of the way and let some of the amazing people here kind of tell their stories. But I did just want to read a couple of quick texts that I received yesterday from people who weren't able to be here or are too scared of understandably, of the retribution that might happen if they show up. But one text that I received, my servers won't be able to pay their rent on 1/1 if they don't work on 12/31. I'll take the fine if I have to. I don't care. It's about them. Another one that I received, I have a catering business that serves the pharmaceutical industry. I serve as a middleman using restaurant partners to deliver food to medical clinics. Both businesses have been shut down. It's been such a tough year. There's been some recovery, but not enough. So I'll just leave you with that. I want to thank everybody who has shown up behind me. There are a couple. You'll hear from a lot of speakers, but I just wanted to shout out to Max and Matt with Me and Kat, who are also here in support. Thank you guys for coming. Mackenzie Kelly, newly elected council member for Northwest Austin District 6, is here. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey with the Texas Restaurant Association for some quick comments.
I'm going to leave this on if y'all can hear me okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for pulling this together on quick notice and really just giving a voice to people who, quite frankly, feel like they haven't been heard for a really long time. My name is Kelsey Erickson-Streifert. I'm the Vice President of Government Relations and Advocacy for the Texas Restaurant Association. We're the second largest private sector employer. Literally support an entire food supply chain that supports farmers, ranchers, alcohol manufacturers, waiters, just a whole litany of people. And the small businesses you're going to hear from today, they're what make our community special. We like to say keep Austin weird. Well, Austin's not going to be very weird if we continue on our current path. It's unsustainable. And I think what's most frustrating is it's unfair and counterproductive. As Ellen said, restaurants are going above and beyond to keep people safe. They're pillars of our community. They're just as worried as we all are about their friends, family, neighbors, employees. But at the end of the day, restaurants cannot continue to be the scapegoat of this pandemic. There is no data, no evidence suggesting that a restaurant curfew is going to combat the spread of COVID-19. But as all of these people can tell you, there is ample evidence that it will further destroy their business. They are spending money they cannot afford to keep their employees on payroll, to purchase supplies, to upgrade their AC and air filtration systems, to clean every surface every 30 minutes. They're truly going above and beyond, and yet it feels like every time the numbers change, the local response is always blame restaurants. It's unsustainable, it's unfair, it's counterproductive. We've got to get back to those strategies that we know work. There needs to be a singular message and a focus on those strategies. We know COVID is spreading, and these unregulated house parties, large family and friend gatherings, what do we think is going to happen if we implement a restaurant curfew? All those parties are just going to shift from highly regulated businesses with reputable business owners like you see up here with me to unregulated spaces where we have no control, no idea what's happening except the spread of COVID. So I just want to reiterate again that restaurants are communities, pillars of the community. We want to do all we can to help, but we can't be the scapegoat of this pandemic. So with that, I'll turn it over. I don't know if Ellis is next. Great.
Thanks, Kelsey. My name is Ellis Winstanley. I'm the president of El Arroyo and a member of the Texas Restaurant, or a board member of the Texas Restaurant Association. I think there's a few things that are really important for people to understand. So 007, so it's 0.007%. Is the number of citations, the percentage of surviving food service establishments that have received citations. So before the pandemic, restaurants served 51% of the food distribution for our community. There were 5,000 of us. Now there's 3,600. Every time there's a dramatic shift, a sudden shift in the way we're doing things, it upsets the apple cart and causes more people to rush to more concentrated environments and actually exacerbates the spread. Doesn't help it. We've had a set of rules that the Texas Restaurant Association published that restaurants have been stringently following since the beginning of the pandemic. And you see those posted on the front doors of restaurants. They're available on the Texas Restaurant Association website. And restaurants have, not only, as we've said from the beginning, are the most well-equipped industry, probably other than medical, to operate in a sanitary and safe environment and contain this. They've consistently done that from the beginning. So we really appreciate the community's support so far. It's been overwhelming, the number of people who've come out to support restaurants and their employees. And it is a much larger conversation than a business itself. It is about a whole ecosystem of people. Restaurants are the most number of employees per capita, or per revenue dollar, of any industry. So you're talking about a lot of lives affected every time there's a shift that's extreme like this. So thank you for your time.
My name is Brent Webster. I'm the First Assistant Attorney General of Texas. First, I want to apologize for Ken Paxton not being able to be here today. He would have loved to be here, but he had a different media event up in the DFW area this morning. It was impossible for him to make it down, so he wanted me to let you know that he wished he could have been here. I do want to lead with a statement Ken Paxton made. Earlier in November, El Paso County attempted to implement illegal restrictions, and we won. We won in the 8th Court of Appeals. And in response to our win, Ken Paxton wrote, "We must never shut Texas down again. I will fight to ensure we don't." And we're doing that. The Texas Attorney General's Office filed a lawsuit yesterday against the city of Austin, against the county, to uphold, and I want to be clear about this, to uphold the rule of law. Now, the rule of law is this, and like it or not, this is how it is in Texas right now. The governor of Texas said his executive order shall supersede any conflicting order issued by local officials in response to the COVID-19 disaster, but only to the extent that such a local order restricts services allowed by this executive order. Let me be clear. The City of Austin's order places restrictions on services the governor said could not have restrictions. And that act is ultra virus, and that's a word we use in the legal system that means it's illegal. So let me be clear. That is the position of the state of Texas and the Attorney General's office. Now, I wanted to speak to restaurant owners and small business owners today. I know there's a lot of press here, but what I care about are you guys. And I want you to hear this. I want you to understand how the legal system works in Texas. In a minute, you're going to hear about our case. Aaron Wrights, our deputy for legal strategy, is going to tell you about our case. But you need to know your legal rights as small business owners. In the event that you decide to stay open, and again, that's up to you and your legal counsel and the advice they give you, what will happen if the city so chooses is they would issue a citation. And there's a lot of misconceptions. I recently came out of private practice, and I had a lot of clients not understand this fact. You will get a citation, but you don't pay it at that point. You then have a right, a constitutional right, to go and fight that ticket in court. And you have a right to an attorney, and they have to prove that case against you. And they have to, first of all, prove that their rule is actually the law. And I think that's going to be really hard to do. So I would encourage you to look at what your rights are to open tonight. And then if you get a citation, then I encourage you to get a lawyer, and I encourage you to fight that citation. Okay? So that's not legal advice, but that's just how our legal system works. You have rights, and you need to not forget that. Now, we are also taking action today to fight this illegal act, and we have filed a case locally. There's going to be a hearing at 1:30 today, and I want to turn it over to Aaron Wrights to speak about that case.
May I ask a question real quick, sir?
No.
Thanks, Brent. My name is Aaron Wrights. I'm the Deputy Attorney General for Legal Strategy at the Texas Attorney General's Office. So as Brent mentioned, 1 hour from now, our lawyers are going to be representing the state in Travis County District Court. And they're going to be having a hearing on our lawsuit that we filed yesterday. Brent teed up the legal issue very plainly, and it's a very simple one. Okay? State law says that political subdivisions cannot pass regulations against their businesses in such a way that contravenes the governor's executive order. In this case, Executive Order number 32. Mayor Adler and the county judge, 2 days before New Year's Eve, late at night, after business hours, dropped their own local orders closing down businesses during certain late night and early morning hours, in direct contradiction with state law. It's as simple as that. And so our lawsuit lays that out. It makes very clear what the state law is, how Adler and Judge Brown violated it, and what we're asking the court to do in our filing yesterday, and in what we're going to make the case this afternoon, is that the only recourse is for the judge to hold unenforceable and invalidate those local orders saying otherwise. Now, we think that we're going to win. There's really no way around it. And by the way, as Brent said, we already ran this same play in early November in El Paso, and we won. So now we have precedent. We've run this play before. The city and the county still haven't submitted any filings as of this moment. They haven't responded, likely because they're scrambling to justify their manifestly illegal actions. And all we're going to do is present that to the court. And we feel very confident that the Travis County District Judge here, in this case, Judge Meacham, great judge, she's going to look at the law, and there's going to be no way around ruling in the state's favor. And a ruling for the state is a win for the people. It's a win for the citizens. It's a win for the business owners. It's a win for Texas. Now, what happens if we lose? If we lose later this afternoon, we will immediately appeal to the Third Court of Appeals. And we're going to run the same exact play that we did in El Paso, where we won. And if we lose in the Third Court of Appeals, then later tonight we're going to go straight to the Texas Supreme Court. And y'all know the Texas Supreme Court is a little bit different than some of the Travis County. I think that at a minimum, we're going to win there. So that's what the next 48 hours is going to look like. We're very optimistic about it. And trust me, Attorney General Paxton, Brent Webster, the other deputies, and the team, we are fighting this full speed ahead, and we expect to deliver a win in just a couple of hours for Texas and for Travis County. Thanks very much.
Why was there any legal action?
I'm not taking any questions. Thank you.
Save the questions for the end, please. Thank you.
Okay, Ben, will you come join us up here? Ben's going to share his experience as a server, and maybe as he's coming up. Well, go ahead. You're here. We'd let Ben is with Come and Take It, and he's an owner and a server there. And these are you heard like the legal side of it, but I also want you guys to see the real faces, the real people who are being impacted.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ben Davis. I'm an owner of Come and Take It Live here in Austin, Texas. I'm not sure, I was asked to come speak on behalf of servers and things of that nature, and I'm kind of take a different direction and speak more about the artists in the live music aspect of what's going on here. The live music in Austin was already in danger before the pandemic. It's pretty much approaching extinction right now with bars not being able to be open, venues not able to be open, things like that. Stages, we were the live music capital of the world, have been dark for roughly a year. That's what I wanted to touch on. I hope that's okay today. Most of us that do the live music venue, we knew going into it, it's not a game to get rich. We're not trying to do that. We're just trying to live out our passion and give people a place to play. Most of these artists are, not top tier names. They're guys that are trying to get to the top tier level, and much like sports, there's only a small percentage of them that actually do. We try to facilitate that for them so that they can be whatever they can be, but be able to do it at their own pace. My bar, like many others have adhered to for the 9 months, all of the rules. We have kept our doors closed for the entire 9 months. Zero revenue, completely locked down. There are many others like me, and with them, as a result of that, obviously servers, other staff, stagehands, roadies, bands, sound techs. It's not just the bars. I hear a lot of people say, it was just a bar, it's not a big deal. It's not just a bar, and it's not just it is a big deal. And bartenders, I've heard people say to them that they're, well, you're a bartender, go get a real job. Well, that is their real job, and that's what they want to do. And it's what most of them develop their life doing and have a passion for it. And, as far as I'm concerned, love what you do or do something else. And with the artists not being able to perform, it's a trickle-down thing. There's also bus rentals. There's hotels and restaurants that aren't getting food because bands aren't touring. There are T-shirt companies that are not able to print because there's not merch to sell at shows, and yada, yada, yada. I'll go off about that. My whole fight in this game, if you will, I kind of wish I was a little further down the line so I could hear what everybody else had to say first, but I'm not the legal guy. I'm the small guy. But basically, my dog is not a political thing. My is to inform the public and try to make y'all realize that what's actually going on is hurting people, and that the fact that we are opening our doors at this point in time is not even a New Year's Eve situation. For us, it's not a choice anymore. Being closed and completely revenue zero for the better part of a year gives me no choice, but I have to open. I have to do something, and the whole point for us doing that is to be able to be open for live music, make sure that we have a stage for these artists to return to, because as you all know, there's not many left, and no matter what size, big, small, whatnot. And so that I ask the leaders of our community that keep that in mind when you're making these decisions. And all of the live music has ceased to exist for 9 months. We're clearly not part of the problem, right? Let's find a way to give it a shot. Let's find a way to get it all back. There has to be a way. If these larger format venues are able to do sporting events and things like that and do it safely, so can the smaller guys. We just got to find a way. So I'd ask that something that I've always done is if there's a problem with my building, with my bar, with my whatever stage, I stay at work and get it done until there's some kind of resolution. I'd ask that our city leaders do the same thing with this scenario. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Ben. Justin?
Good afternoon, everybody. How are y'all doing today? My name is Justin Berry. Many of y'all know me from my role here as a local police officer, as well as a former candidate running for office. But I'm here today as someone that once was a busboy, that once worked at a Chick-fil-A, that once waited tables, was a bar back and a bartender, worked my way through school and through life to get to where I am today. It's these various establishments that many of us have celebrated anniversaries and weddings, or we've catered food for a corporate event. And every time when we've left, we were always approached from our restaurant industry or our bar industry with a smile, a thank you, and a please come again. This community and this industry has never once reached out for help. They've never once reached out and filled the streets blocked roadways. This community, this industry, has focused on being a community member and a community partner, providing services and foods and jobs for many people who are their first-time jobs that get us on a pathway of our career choice later in life. This is an industry right now that is in dire need. As you just heard from Ben and from others, they can wait no longer. Sadly, there are people who have chosen to politicize what's been going on, that have chosen the pathway of using this as political leverage to pass policies or agendas at the expense of people like Ben, the people that the Restaurant Association represents. And unfortunately, they're also working on using public officials to go out there and enforce these things. As we just now heard from the AG's office, that they believe it's going to be deemed unlawful. That puts its own spin on things as a public servant and been asked to go out there and enforce these things. What do? It is not going to be the mayor or these judges that are up on stand for official oppression, that are enforcing laws that are said to be unlawful. There's case precedent out of El Paso that's already set precedent in the state of Texas that it's unlawful. So what are the public servants supposed to do when they've been asked to burden on this? Law enforcement community knows this law very well because it's a law that we're always very cautious and mindful of. But the civilians that have been asked to enforce these laws, the fire marshals, the Austin Public Health, the code enforcement, they're not all familiar with this. So I encourage them to all get very familiar with what's going on the legal perspective of this as you're asked to go out there and enforce it. So what do we do as a community? Is the coronavirus a real thing? Yes, it is. It's impacted everybody. I think everyone here that's taken these losses has always acknowledged it to be a real thing. That's why they've implemented the measures, the mask, the 6-feet mandate, sanitizing every surface in their establishment every 30 minutes, changing the HVAC filters, taking extreme costs for themselves. There are people that understand this is a real thing. But we must also look at the policy that's being implemented. There are more people underneath 35 right now congregated together than there are in this very restaurant we're in right now, without masks, that then go out to the street corners and panhandle at your car. But yet our restaurants here are trying to be lawful and abide by the rules in place. They don't have exemptions, but their families need help. Their staff members need help. Because at one point in time, we are delaying the inevitable that rent is due. What do we do next for those staff members when it comes time to pay the bills? Because it is an inevitable day. That day will come. Are we delaying this, or do we continue to keep supporting and encouraging our restaurants who have shown through their very actions, through their proactive actions, to be good, solid community partners in our community, wearing the mask, socially distancing, as our state and nation continue to fight to develop the vaccines and go out there and try to administer that out to our community? We must not forget those men and women who are in our service industry that need this help, that have done what's been asked of them. So my plea to you today is, as a fellow community member, let's withhold our criticism of these establishments that are just trying to survive, and instead let's show empathy for their friends and their families so that they too can put food on their plate, so that you too one day, that your children one day can have a place to go get their very first job, to go get started on their pathway of employment, their pathway of a future career endeavor. Let's show our support and let's rally behind our restaurants and bar industry and our entertainers in this time of their need, because many of them are fearful, and rightfully so. So let's do our part, let's do our job and show that support. Let's rally behind them. And if you don't want to go out, that is your choice. Go out and order takeaway, order food in. But for those that choose to do so, let's continue to allow those people to make their solid choice and support this industry. Thank you all for y'all's time today.
I'm going to leave my mask on. I don't want to give anybody a reason to come after me, okay? So I'm going to just tell you that. My name is Skeeter Miller. I've owned and operated the County Line restaurants for 45 years, and I've been the 6-time president of the Greater Austin Restaurant Association. And one of the biggest things that means a lot to me is that my average employee tenure is 37 years, so those people are super important to me. And we have really spent every dime we have to make sure that we keep them employed. And I want to thank the governor in the Attorney General's office for having our back, because if it wasn't for you giving us consistent guidelines to go by, I don't know where we would be with some of the things that we're dealing with in this city. And here we are coming into one of the biggest weekends of the year to try to end the year to where, A, our employees can make some money to pay their rent, their car payments, and, not to mention, we need to make our property tax payments. And they're going to close us down with 48 hours notice. And we've already ordered all the food. We spent the money to put stuff into our walk-in coolers. We've got everything ready to go. perishables, non-perishables, and we need to sell it in order to pay those folks, and we're not going to be able to do that. And I just want to clarify one more thing. I have people that are calling me saying, well, Skeeter, what do you have to worry about? Your restaurant will be closed at 10 o'clock. Well, it doesn't bother you. Yes, it does, okay? I have restaurants in New Mexico right now that are having to live by a curfew, and that curfew means that I have no customers inside my restaurant starting at 8 o'clock because they're trying to meet that curfew. So I do appreciate what the governor's doing, and I just want everybody to know that we're on our last leg, and we got to get through this, and we got to stop this local regulation. Thank you.
Well, the good news is I'm the last, so we're almost done. I'm going to keep my mask on. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Gerard. I'm a small business owner in Austin, and I have been for 30 years. I'm currently the owner of Speakeasy on Congress Avenue, which has been there since 1997. To start with some numbers, I'm a fan of numbers, and so I just want to start with some numbers. We currently have, according to the Austin Public Health website, 434 people in the hospital with COVID in a 5-county metropolitan statistical area. So that area includes Travis County, Williamson County, Hayes County, Bastrop County, and Caldwell County. So the MSA has a population of over 2.2 million residents. So in other words, there's an average of 86 people in each county in the hospital with COVID. This is not our peak. Our peak was in July. I've watched as this pandemic response has become a war on small businesses across the country. Austin is no different. I've watched as our local big box Walmarts were packed with holiday shoppers. I've watched our local airport that is filled up with travelers. I've watched as airline passengers are being packed onto planes like sardines for hours at a time. I've watched as our grocery stores and big box liquor stores are full and doing record sales. Gyms are filling back up. People are going back to their offices to work. I watched the University of Texas football team beat Colorado a couple of nights ago with a very full enclosed stadium in San Antonio. Congratulations, by the way, UT. We're obviously a bowl team. This was two teams whose players don't know each other running full speed at each other without masks. But somehow this increase in COVID cases is being caused by restaurants and bars. It just doesn't add up for me. Owning a small business during normal times is a difficult endeavor. It's been especially so over the last couple of years in Austin, Texas. Small businesses continue to suffer massive increase in property taxes, huge increases in crime from our ever-growing homeless population, and a decrease in our police force's ability to protect us and our customers due to massive funding cuts. To put it mildly, owning a small business during a pandemic is exponentially more difficult. Although difficult, small businesses throughout Austin are figuring out a way to just keep their doors open. We keep searching for our light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, our current leadership continues to make this difficult situation virtually impossible for small businesses, especially restaurants and bars in Austin. There's no insurance policy that covers this. Through hard work, determination, and most likely taking on additional debt that will have to be paid back when things recover, these small businesses have survived to this point. But every time they come up for air, they get pushed back underwater by the actions of our local leadership. Our small businesses are an extension of our family. Our customers are family, our employees are family, our musicians are family. Small business owners are just trying to take care of their family when very few others are rising to the task. All the bartenders, servers, musicians, chefs, and managers want to do is work. They want to be able to feed themselves. They want to be able to feed their families. They want to be able to pay rent so they don't end up amongst the folks living in a tent on First Street. They just want an opportunity to get through this and hope that times will get better. It is a simple ask. The time to support local small businesses and its employees is now. If our small local family-owned businesses can make it a few more months, we will probably be able to stay in business for the long run. It's been a crazy year. If there was ever a year to have a drink at midnight and send the year off packing, this is the year. Don't forget to tip your bartenders. Don't forget to tip your servers, your musicians. They really need it right now. They really need it. God bless and Happy New Year.
Okay, I'm going to just wrap it up. The Attorney General's office, because they're involved in ongoing litigation, are unable to take questions, but if, of course, we're all going to stick around, and if anybody wants to talk further or has questions, the rest of us are happy to answer them. Thank you guys so much for covering this story and for giving them a platform to tell their stories.
Is there a reason why there was no legal action taken against Bear County and San Antonio around Thanksgiving when they enacted similar orders? I'm just curious as to why there was no legal action taken then, but there is against Austin now.
I'm so sorry they're unable to answer the questions. That was kind of the agreement to have them participate, was that they can't comment on ongoing litigation. But
so then my other question then for restaurant and business owners, there are some people that we're streaming this live right now. Some people may be wondering, what does a few hours make for a difference? And I was wondering if a restaurant owner could speak on what that difference really is financially, with cutting off that 10:30 p.m. Because there are some people that are curious about that.
I'll jump in real quick. I talked to one restaurant owner yesterday, and he told me that since the lockdowns began, that they are $2 million behind in revenue from this time last year. So that's $2 million that this restaurant owner I spoke to yesterday is down by in this last year. That's just one restaurant owner in this town. So I can't speak on behalf of the others and what their losses were, but this is from a very prominent restaurant here in this town. Listening to these owners calling me up, almost crying when I hear their stories, because they care about their livelihoods, but it's more when they talk, it's more their passion for their staff. I think that's not talked about a lot, because that $2 million lost in revenue, that's $2 million in salaries and in benefits and in wages that go to these other people. And so, again, that's to answer your question on that. Again, I don't mean to interrupt the other owners, but that's from one that I spoke to that wanted that to get out.
Does that question make sense? I'm just curious as to what the difference is.
Well, I think like every other policy-related issue, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. I think sending the message that restaurants are in any way causing or contributing to the spread is the larger issue. I think if you do want to isolate it to this small set of hours, there are a lot of restaurants and bars who've made commitments to their customers to spend beers and to have them throw them out at 10:30 instead of having them stay through the end of the event. Just is nonsensical. It doesn't jive with any factual basis at all. So I think you're going to have a subset of people who are going to actually have to break commitments, or they would have to break commitments if they followed. I think it will affect their staff, and as referenced earlier, people trying to make their January 1 rent payments, I think would absolutely affect them. And I think on a broader scale, it affects restaurants in general to send that message, particularly with the actual way restaurants have been operating is the exact opposite of that.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, the numbers are very bad, and I think it might have been you, or maybe it was Skeeter that pointed out that there are hospitalization numbers, but we've had our local health authorities say that we are edging on what could be not just something bad, but a crisis. And so I have to ask, the wisdom of holding events on New Year's Eve when you know that there are going to be people that are going to be drinking a lot, and people tend to sort of lose their inhibitions when they do that. So I have a question just about the responsibility of venues, restaurants, etc., of holding events like these when everyone sees the numbers.
Yep.
You know that things are happening. Sure, there's spread happening in homes, but
Sure. No, let me address that again. Kelsey Erickson Stroifer from the Texas Restaurant Association. Listen, everyone up here knows that we have a public health crisis on our hands. No one is oblivious to that. It's impacted all of us personally, professionally, as well as the rest of our community, and we understand that and take that very seriously. But I think we also have to be realistic. New Year's Eve is not going to not happen if restaurants are closed. People are going to gather, people are going to celebrate, people are going to consume alcohol with varying degrees of responsibility. And I think the worst thing we could do is take away their ability to do that safely, their ability to do that in a regulated space where public safety officials like Justin works with all the time can actually come in and make sure that the rules are being followed. As has been mentioned several times up here, we regularly track data both from the city's enforcement efforts and from the state's enforcement efforts through the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. Those numbers consistently show us that bars and restaurants have about a 1% infraction rate. So if I'm someone who's trying to encourage people to do the safe thing, the right thing, the last thing I want to do is move them from those locations where we know the rules are being followed into their houses, into their parties, into their private gatherings, where we know COVID is spreading like wildfire.
My question is on the non-monetary cost of this. This is for you or any of the business owners that can speak to it. Obviously, we know there's a huge mental health crisis going on, and it's been speeded with the pandemic. Can you speak to that at all, and how the non-monetary?
Absolutely. I mean, I talk to restaurant owners daily who the emotional toll of this is exhausting. They have employees, as Skeeter mentioned, who have worked for them for decades, and they do not know if they're going to be able to keep them on payroll in the middle of the holidays, in the middle of a freezing rainstorm, when people have to pay their rent and have to keep food on the table. I think we underestimate. You know, people say it's just a bar, it's just a restaurant. That's a want, not a need, right? It's frivolous. It's not something we have to have. These are people who've invested, in many cases, their entire life savings and their entire life work to build a small business that probably just barely gets by in the best of times. And they have the weight of the world on their shoulders with their employees, with their suppliers, with their musicians. It truly is an ecosystem and a family. And then you add on top of that the uncertainty, right? For 6 months, we didn't know if Congress was going to get its act together and pass a relief bill. Every day we wake up and don't know what new local order is going to come down the pipeline, what new initiative is going to be targeted at restaurants. So the mental and spiritual toll of this is huge. And I think we really need to take that into account. And as someone mentioned earlier, support our local businesses. Even if you don't feel comfortable going out, look for other ways to support your local business. But please, by all means, don't shame them. These are people who are doing everything they can to keep going, to keep moving forward, and to support those who rely on them.
I'm curious, is there any discussion amongst the bar and restaurant owners to just start disobeying these, what many legal scholars view as unconstitutional orders, so that you can survive and stay in business?
You know, I think as someone said earlier, we can't provide legal advice to folks. I'm a lawyer too, so I always have to add that little caveat. But you know, at the end of the day, every business owner is going to have to look at their books, their personnel, their unique situation, and really think about what's in the best interest of them and their business.
That's more a question to the business owners. I'm just curious if you guys are discussing it like kind of a union of sorts.
Hey, they're all the people here are going to be open. So, I mean, that's the decision they've made for their businesses and their employees, that they will be open and they feel comfortable making that decision.
And I would just say, you know, I would urge our local officials to really think about the fact that they dropped this, you know, at night, 2 days before a holiday, when people are checked out. The governor and the attorney general have said it's illegal, unlawful. Let's drop enforcement. Let's drop this at least until we have a resolution, because once again we're putting people's lives at stake in this high-stakes political game, and it's just not fair.
I'm curious, what is the enforcement? Like, say you guys decide to remain open, who comes and says, oh, you get a fine or you can't be open? What is that enforcement?
That's code. So, yeah, to my understanding, you're looking at code enforcement, fire marshal, and Austin Public Health. It's been my understanding those would be the entities that are looking at doing so, more the civilian entity side of it. Anyone else have any other questions? Yes.
I got confirmation from that last night, like code. They said they would be back tonight.
Okay.
So it was code, health, and fire. So they're being weaponized by Mayor Adler because they know the police and law enforcement association and law enforcement officers.
Are you making a speech?
I'm an owner, so once you just
Hey guys, it's fine. Anyone else have any other questions? Hey, anyone else have any other questions? If not, then we'll wrap this up today. All right. Thank you all so much, y'all. We appreciate y'all's time today. Thank y'all for coming out and allowing the opportunity for these owners to have a voice out. So thank y'all. Have a great day and happy New Year.
Thank y'all.